Welcome back. Last week we caught up with Governor Perry in Shiner, Texas, where he was touring the state's newest gun manufacturer. Shield Tactical is one of those companies coaxed into coming to Texas from California. In our exclusive interview with the governor, he tackled that topic and our questions about gun control. With the gun manufacturers, in the letter that you sent to them, it specifically talks about gun control and limitations that other states might be facing. Yeah. How does that really play into what you're trying to do here in Texas?
Well, I think any manufacturer, whatever they might be, want to be appreciated wherever they are. And when you have, let's take for the sake of conversation, a company like Magpul in Colorado, and their legislature basically banning what they make, that's a pretty strong signal that we don't want you in our state. Connecticut, for instance, passed some pretty onerous gun legislation. So a state that has a legislature that cares more about being politically correct than they do about economic development will pay a price in the environment that we live in today. And that price will be that we're a fairly mobile society, and people will move their families and their businesses to places where they feel appreciated and where they have more freedom. And that's really what this is about. This is a conversation about freedom, freedom from over-taxation, freedom from over-regulation, freedom from over-litigation.
You mentioned Connecticut. Their gun control legislation was in direct response to the school shooting that happened in Sandy Hook.
Correct.
Yes, and you know, how does that play into eventually trickling down to what you're trying to do here?
Well, my position has always been that if you want to be truthful about these events, then go to where the real problem is, and that's the people who are pulling the triggers of these weapons, and that's generally about mental health. If you want to have a conversation about how to focus on mental health, how to identify the individuals who are the real problems here. You know, we have laws on the book. Those laws need to be respected and held up first. More laws passing is not going to save a child's life. I mean, none of those events, with all even these pieces of legislation that would have passed, thoughtful education, allowing citizens to protect themselves, those are the way to keep these evil people from doing harm in our society today, not passing more legislation just for the sake of passing legislation.
If you look at that trickle-down effect from shootings like the one in Sandy Hook to gun control legislation that's being proposed, some critics have said that it looks like you might be trying to capitalize on events that have happened in the last year or so as far as shootings across the nation in order to get business to come to Texas.
I don't suspect that cynics are going to go away anytime soon, but the fact is we have been doing economic development outreach. This happens to be in response to states that are putting onerous legislation into place, and whether you're a manufacturer of a widget or whether you're a manufacturer of a weapon and your legislature makes it more difficult for you to do business, you can bet the state of Texas is going to reach out to you and say, hey, you want to come to a place where you can be freer from over-taxation, freer from over-litigation, freer from over-regulation? Come try Texas.
You're getting a reputation as the gun governor. What do you say?
I hope I'm the job creation governor, whether it happens to be in the weapons manufacturing or whether it's in tubular steel. When you look at the grand scheme of things, that Tenaris announcement about 6 weeks ago, $1.3 billion in Matagorda County, all of the gun manufacturers will pale in comparison to that. Dow Chemical, we announced a $3.4 billion expansion of that facility just 60 days ago. So those are, you know, my reputation will be of job creation. The gun side of it is a subset, and a minor one, frankly. But we're proud to have small businesses like Shield Tactical who realize that the onerous regulations in California were not good for their business. They relocated to Texas.
All right, our political roundtable is here now to weigh in on Perry's plan. Joining us, Paul Burka from Texas Monthly, Christy Hoppy from the Dallas Morning News, and Jay Root from the Texas Tribune. Welcome, everyone. So we've seen him at NRA, we've seen him opening, gun business in Shiner and such. But what about, what you just saw there? Is there any criticism you're hearing beyond, just that initial bringing more business to Texas?
None. I mean, this is the perfect scenario for Perry, where he can bring a gun manufacturer to Texas. I mean, he gets points for the economic development, and then he gets to portray this as a pro-gun thing. And, Perry is very believably pro-gun. I don't know if you saw the video of him at the NRA, but I mean, it just looked so authentic. I
Shooting
can't,
the egg and everything.
Yeah, I can't imagine David Dewhurst being able to pull that off. I mean,
he does. He comes across as a Rambo type of. He's always been an ardent Second Amendment defender, and for his base, for his type of voter, there is no downside for him being a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment.
We didn't even see many protesters at the NRA convention. I mean, is there really no one that's really speaking out against this in Texas?
I don't think there's a big groundswell against guns in Texas. I mean, I don't see it. The NRA convention was here. I'm sure there were people in the legislature who may have gone down to Houston for it for a time, but it's so ingrained in our culture that to sit here and try to rail against guns is just sort of futile. It's not going to have any impact.
But we have seen a lot of gun proposals in the legislature. Many of them would help out people with the gun rights argument, making, I guess, conceal and carry argument a little bit broader, things like campus carry. What are we seeing this week as far as maybe the most promising legislation for those gun rights advocates?
Well, I think campus carry was up in the Senate, and then Senator Whitmire had it, and he pulled back a little bit, and then I think he turned out to be for it in the end. That was certainly one of the bills. Last session, I believe there was a workplace carry. You could leave your gun in the car while you were at work, which I think really didn't even get a lot of pushback.
One of the ones we've seen kind of going through right now, when you talk about campus carry, is the one where you could leave your gun in your car if you're on a college campus, if you have a CHL, correct?
Correct, and that has sailed through the Senate, and it got an approval in the House. So that's pretty basic, in Texas. If you have a CHL, you can leave your gun in your car. But campus carry was in some ways made much more flexible, and that's the reason why it's doing well in the legislature right now. There is an opt-out provision for any university now who chooses, after some hearings, to decide that those aren't a good thing on their campus, and so they can opt out and ban guns from inside their classroom buildings.
Last session there was a big fight about it. Senator Wentworth was pushing the campus carry, and they decided that a private college did not have to be covered by that provision. I went to Rice, and Rice was able to opt out. But I don't know how many other private colleges actually took that route.
What about the school marshals, the bill that we've been hearing about from Jason Villalba?
I'm not sure exactly where that bill is. I was going to say on the campus carry, that bill did get referred to Senator Whitmire's committee. There's another one that I thought was very interesting, the debate in the House, where the bill says that the state cannot spend any money on any gun prosecution cooperate with the federal government if that law goes beyond what Texas law is. And you think about some people that were along the border said if we have a joint operation with the federal government, that could stymie us into really prosecuting these gun crimes that everybody says is a problem.
The come and take it bill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Nullification bill.
Yeah.
It was that the federal government could, that the state officials could say to the federal government, people who came in, you can't interfere with our gun laws. Of course, it's totally non-constitutional or extra-constitutional, or whatever you want. The supremacy clause of the Constitution, the state law cannot override federal law.
But it's a statement. It's a political statement.
It was a political statement.
And that's what they were trying to do. On the school marshal bill, they changed it enough so that somebody who's in a school would have to take 80 hours of training, would have to keep the gun in a locked, secure place, and could only go seek it when there was an emergency. And now that seems to have a pretty clear passage to the governor's desk.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us. And we got 2 more weeks left, so anything goes, right?
Anything.
All right. Coming up on In Session In Depth.
Every year since we started, we've beat the previous year's sales, so it's been on a good trajectory from the get-go.
More gun companies might mean more competition for Texas gunsmiths. We take you inside an operation in New Braunfels to show you how workers there plan to meet the challenge when In Session In Depth returns.